The threefold refuge. Difficult is to receive a human form, now we are living it. Difficult is to hear the Dharma of the Buddha, now we hear it. We do not cross over to the truth in the present life, in what life shall we cross over? Let us with sincerity and true reverence take refuge in the three treasures of the truth. I take refuge in the Buddha. May we, together with all sentient beings, awaken to the great way of enlightenment and to the unsurpassed intent of Amida Buddha. I take refuge in the Dharma. May we, together with all sentient beings, enter the storehouse of the Dharma, becoming like the wisdom ocean. I take refuge in the Sangha. May we, together with all sentient beings, become units in true accord, in harmony with all things. The peerless, profound, and wondrous Dharma is rare to encounter, even in many hundreds and thousands of kalpas. Now we are privileged to hear and receive it. Let us thoroughly understand the true meaning of Tathagata's teaching. Golden Chain 1. I am a link in Amida's golden chain of love that stretches around the world. I will keep my link bright and strong. I will be kind and gentle to every living thing and protect all who are weaker than myself. I will think pure and beautiful thoughts, say pure and beautiful words, and do pure and beautiful deeds. May every link in Amida's golden chain of love be bright and strong, and may we all attain perfect peace. Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu. Okay, before we begin today's Dharma talk, if I can have everyone out there join me in Gasho for an opening reading. When one contemplates the great ocean of entrusting, it chooses not between the rich and the poor, has nothing to do with being male or female, old or young, makes nothing of karmic evil great or little, does not weigh the length of practice, it is not to be found in the distinctions of relative practices or goods, sudden or gradual, meditative and non-meditative, orthodox or heterodox, but just in this true and trusting, inconceivable, inexplicable, ineffable. Shinran Shonin on great and trusting, Kyogo Shinsho. Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu. All right, well, good morning everyone, and thank you again for joining us for Salinas Buddhist Temple's live stream Sunday service. For those who do not know me or just tuning in for the first time this week, my name is Nick San Juan. I am one of the minister's assistant of Reverend J. Shinseki. So hopefully everyone out there, you're all doing well and enjoying the best of health. A few weeks ago, if you remember, or actually not a few weeks ago, just last week if you remember, I had a talk about the power, other power in Shinjin. And it wasn't until after the sermon that I had thought to myself how lucky I had been to be made aware of Amida Buddha and his primal vow. I thought about my life and what are the differences between the me of now and then. My life before Nenbutsu practice, the Nick of no Nenbutsu. I'm not sure if there are others out there like myself who are not born into Shinshu, but I'm sure that you can relate to the thought of the old you and the new you, before and after Shinshu made its way into your life. I think about my life before and how my life was voided of this knowledge. Then I think about when I found it. And I'm sure we all have an interesting story, even those born into Shinshu, when we had reached that aha moment and when everything became clear. Growing up for me, the Buddhist upbringing was more ritualistic than substance. And I also had a Catholic upbringing as well, which was no different, if not the same. Only difference was that one instilled fear in me and only enhanced because, if not all, but my uncle was Catholic, he was a Buddhist. I know most of you might think that I'm talking about a fear of a God, but it was quite the contrary. It was the fear of being different. Whether it be with friends or family, only a handful of friends I grew up with were Buddhist, and I'm sure they had their own thoughts and feelings about living in a Christian society. But nonetheless, I went through the motions for both religions to please others and live a pretty non-religious lifestyle up until about early college. Not to say that I had no moral upbringing, because you can learn the rights and wrongs from family and the community. Still, there was something missing, this kind of unassurance in life. And when I had realized that I was unassured of a lot of things, like a parent who raises a child, that child who feels protected, assured that will be taken care of. But when that time comes to leave the nest, to be your own person, to find yourself, to be an adult, you are suddenly left to figure out things on your own. It's scary because if you're like me, we may not all turn back to our parents, friends, teachers, or even ministers. The Nick of Nomnen Butsu was a very, very different person. Life had taught me lessons and humbled me throughout the years of growing older, but I still always thought, beyond a certain point in my life, that I had no one to rely on but myself. Not living in the present, I thought about my future and what lies beyond and my eventual death. Even with a Buddhist mindset, I felt I could never live up to the standards of becoming a Buddha, and I'd be stuck in this endless circle of samsara and reincarnation. But in contrast, if ever in my life I considered myself to be of Catholic thinking, how could I enter the pearly gates without the belief in a God? And I felt lost, and in my own terms, I'm screwed. And the Nick of Nomden Butsu was lost and afraid, even though the rest of the world would have thought otherwise. A tennis game and some conversation amongst fellow Buddhist friends who I had not seen since the temple days of early childhood led me to the Buddhist temple of Monterey. I don't remember what was said that day, but upon my first visit, Shinseki Sensei had blew me away with just one sermon. Nothing had ever been so thought-provoking, and whatever was said must have hit close to home, because following week, me and my good friend Mariko Mariyama had returned. Needless to say, it became a reoccurring thing every Sunday. The most important thing I took from the temple sermons was, despite my karmic baggage, my imperfect self, someone who once lived and dwelled in the three poisons of greed, anger, and hate, that it was possible to become a Buddha. This concept of come as you are and be saved almost seemed way too good to be true. Because the first step of being a Buddhist is to aspire to be enlightened, is it not? As I had mentioned before, this method of self-power that I had been led to believe in to become enlightened, the monk's path, was nearly impossible in my mind. How could I live a normal life, follow a bunch of precepts without breaking them? Then I was introduced to Shinran Shonin, our founder, who was said to have mastered all the practices a Buddhist monk could have at the time, and even then he could not even really reach enlightenment because of his own blinding passions. Then through Master Honin's teaching on Amida Buddha, he realized through other power he was able to attain enlightenment. This entrusting yourself to Amida Buddha's vow. Where did I lie in his vow? Where did Sakyamuni Buddha say in the sutra that Amida Buddha would say to me? It was until I read the actual sutra that I found the answer. This is a direct excerpt of Shinran Shonin, quoted from a student saying, "But the people of the world constantly say, even the evil person attains birth, how much more so the good person? Although this appears to be sound at first glance, it goes against the intention of other power. The reason is that since the person of self-power, being conscious of doing good, lacks the thought of entrusting the self completely to the other power, he or she is not the focus of the boundless compassion, Amida Buddha. But when self-power is overturned and entrusting to other power occurs, the person attains birth or realizes the land of true fulfillment, the pure land of emptiness. Now, to break down this statement, this statement carries universal significance. It is the human karmic condition to want to do good and to avoid seeing the bad or evil within themselves. Yet, always to seek to present oneself as good is to be caught in the workings of your own ego, or what Shinran calls self-power, preventing one from opening up to the Buddha nature, the great compassion of what Shinran calls other power, because it is other than ego. Shinran's statement, how much more so the evil person, it also carries specific criticism of his contemporaries, learned monks who presume to be the Buddha's experts, quote unquote, but flaunt their social status and privilege, in contrast to farmers and regular folk who lack such pretensions and are in greater harmony with the rhythms of nature, who possess very little material wealth and must live in constant awareness of impermanence. The point here is that Buddhism is a bodily practice first, in which one speaks Nembutsu aloud. Then the heart may open and the mind may follow, but if only one is sufficiently humble and clear of the need to possess and desire control of the world through the intellect. Shinran defined two key moments in the arc of the Nembutsu path. Shinjin, which is true and trusting, and a moment of realizing boundless compassion, and Ojo, birth in the Pure Land, which comes at the end of life. To be in aspirate alone with all my blind passions and be saved by Amida Buddha. To become a Buddha, break samsara, an assurance that lifts all fears and worries. I am thankful for my teachers, Sakamuni, Shinran, and Shinseki Sensei. They have expounded the Dharma, lifted doubt from my capabilities and flaws as a human being. To be just as I am, to just aspire to be a Buddha with the assurance to be birthed in the Pure Land through Amida Buddha. This gift is something that I am able to pass on to my daughter, the extension of my very existence, that she is able to start her life with Nembutsu, something I did not have, but I am grateful to have found. If you can please join me in Gasho. In realizing faith, we simply cast off the sundry practices and disciplines of the evil mind of self-power, and without any doubts, single-heartedly and deeply take refuge in Amida Buddha. We call true and real faith Amida Tathagata, fully knowing the sentient beings who single-heartedly and steadfastly entrust themselves in this way. Graciously send forth rays of light, receive these beings within the light, and enables them to be born in the Pure Land of utmost bliss. Namo Mirabus, Namo Mirabus, Namo Mirabus. Please join me in Gasho. Speaking of blind passions, an excerpt from Shinran Shonin. One of the keys to Shinran's thought lies in the fact that he saw all beings as subject to blind passions, including ordained Buddhist monks and nuns. No one is entirely free of blind passions, and no one is devoid of the potential to realize liberation from their bonds. Whether we are lay or ordained, women or men, it is only through recognizing our mistakes that we learn and grow. Our blind passions are like fertilizer for the field of our own spiritual development, as blind passions and boundless compassion go hand in hand. The more we become aware of our foolishness, the greater we will be in the illumination of boundless compassion. The deeper we go into the ocean of boundless compassion, the more we realize that we have been drowning in our own foolishness. It is a process whereby we are illuminated and immersed in the ocean light of Amida's great compassion. In chanting the name Amida, the true and real, the sincere mind of Amida becomes one with the mind of the follower through the working of boundless compassion. Shinran himself saw himself as the most foolish being of all and called himself Wudoku Shinran, which literally means Shinran the bald-headed fool. His robes were not so much in sign of religious attainment, but rather a reflection of his self-representation as a foolish being receiving the gifts of boundless compassion. This is the universal message that anyone can relate to. Even the most accomplished Buddhist masters are nevertheless human, have limitations, and are subject to error in human fallibility. Thus, among the followers of Shinran, path of Shin Buddhism, there were learned monks as well as illiterate peasants, and certainly one you might see a master as further along the Buddhist path than a mere lay person. Yet Shinran saw things a bit differently, whereas the norm is to see the learned monkhood as a dance on the path. Shinran saw his lay followers, many of them illiterate peasants, as equal to or even superior to the monks of his day. Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu. Thank you again, everyone, for attending. Do we have announcements?
Okay, good morning, everybody. Thank you to Nick for giving us the service, doing the service today. So a few announcements. So the October newsletter, White Path newsletter, will go out next week. If anybody wants to make an announcement, please contact me or Mariko. Next week's live stream service will be conducted by Reverend Shinseki. I guess Nick will be here also. And we'll be out of this Salinas Temple. It's very important September Shotsuki service and the Ohigan service. You should know you're supposed to go Ohaka Mairi on Ohigan in Japan. And Introduction to Buddhism class taught by Shinseki Sensei starts next week on Wednesday. This starts at 1 o'clock to 2:30, and you'll go for 7 times. So only $10 for members, and you'll be guaranteed to become an absolute expert on Buddhism. So there's still time to sign up if you like to do that. So another announcement, next October 10th, Saturday, we plan to do a yard cleanup at the temple. And we're going to have a trailer hitch to put the yard waste in on starting Wednesday. So you can come in a couple of days before, according to your schedule. But the main day will be the Saturday, October 10th. I'd like to thank Don Yoshimura for providing the trailer for putting things out. And, I guess like last year, Don and Davis took care of the disposal. By the way, Andy Gilbert's been spending a lot of time taking care of the temple grounds, and he's been taking care of all the leaves and so on. So actually the temple is in pretty good shape. So there won't be quite as much work as usual, thanks to Andy. So I'd like to thank him for that. And October Shotsuki is planned for 18th, Sunday. And there will be an Eitaikyo service also. That service, It will be live streamed again, but we will have a recorded message from Reverend Kusunoki from Seattle, Betsuin. He's a very interesting minister, very dynamic, and gives very interesting talk. Hopefully he will have a Japanese and the English sermon that will be recorded, that will be airing during the live service. So please keep that in mind, and please be sure to put it on your calendar. So I think that is about it. So please, stay healthy, keep your distance. We're likely to continue this situation into October. I do look at the Monterey County Health Department data, and the infection rate was like 200, close to 200 per day on August. But today it's down to like 10s and 20s. So there's been big improvement. If the trend continues, maybe we can be back, open for business. You could go to restaurants and eat inside, for example. So hopefully everybody keeps up the good work and keep the infection rate down. So that's it. Thank you very much.
Before we close today's live stream service, I wanted to thank Mrs. Furamura for the offerings to the Naijin, as well as the Yamashitas for today's production team, as always. They're coming out every Sunday, and again, without them, this would not be possible, so thank you very much. Everyone, have a wonderful Sunday, and I look forward to seeing you next week with Reverend Jay Shinsheki for Ohigan service. And
Go 49ers.
oh, and go 49ers, of course. Let's hope we don't mess up with the Jets. Goodbye, everybody. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu.